take a deep breath from the perineum up. Kind of hold it at your heart chakra so it doesn't tense your throat up. Relax your shoulders. And release slowly. And then let's do it again. Come up from your seating self. Up to your heart, so you're not tensing your neck, and hold it. And one more. Above, below, before, behind, within, without. We pause to recognize the sacred moment in life, the now, the eternal now. And we're so grateful to be here with each other.
Yes.
And to be here with you. I'm Stella Moore.
Penny Nichols.
I'm Allison Michelle. Today our topic is, what is it to be mindful versus to be mental?
And at this point, almost everybody in the world knows what it's like to be mental.
I think
not just
so.
Not just
I think
those
so.
of us who have had a diagnosis.
Yeah. Well, I wrote down a little bit of history about that word, like where mental really entered the vocabulary. By 1927, we were using it in the sense of crazy and deranged. Mm-hmm. And this comes
the
from...
Roaring '20s, interesting.
Yes.
Well, yeah, that's when it was really like colloquially set as that.
Yeah.
But it comes from, in 1859, mental patient, mental hospital, mental health, mental illness, mental retardation.
So it started in the 1800s.
Yeah.
Controversial
Goodness.
there. But yeah, so that term, and then also it just has a negative connotation. The mind alone, even in the tarot, is represented by the swords. None of those cards are fun to look at.
Nobody's happy with the sword, sword cards usually.
What have you been thinking? I just wanted to introduce that from the start.
Well,
like
I think that's
our
a good thing for all of us to do too. It's like, Penny, tell us what you thought about when you thought about this, and then I'll go last. You know, because you were telling me before we got set up this morning, kind of what you'd been thinking about mental and mindful.
I did. I was reading about it and what they're hoping to do to help people with another strategy to calm their anxiety or depression. You know, anything that you don't like about yourself, you can do it by meditation and mindfulness.
Becoming aware of the present moment.
Exactly.
And everything that's going on in your body. And that's the reason for the breaths. I'm still bad at doing that. Like, Stella is great with the narration of the breaths and all of that. I still am like, okay, I'm still breathing. No, I'm breathing out. No.
And the reason I know to say some of these things is because even though I've been meditating since I was 17, I had some correcting to do when I started doing it. I've been experimenting the last 3 years with different kinds of meditation. I said that in our last podcast.
Okay.
And when I started doing an hour a day with I tried Joe Dispenza. He was the last one I tried. Okay, so I'm trying this with Joe Dispenza, and he'd say, you know, start with the perineum and move up, and, you know, and you tense it up and all this, and I'd be like this, and he'd go, and if there's tension in your neck, you're not doing it right, and I'm going, hell, that's right. You know, so that's why I mentioned, I think you should stop the air right here in your head, so that it's not, so you're not tensing your throat up when you get up in here.
Right, because
Yeah.
I felt that when we did this.
Yeah, and that's why I mentioned it today, because I thought if everybody knows we stop up here and you don't breathe up here. I was a professional singer when I was younger, and that's one of the first things that you learn if you take any kind of voice lessons is you don't breathe up here. It comes from down in
I know
here.
that. Oh my
Down.
gosh, she's gonna give me voice lessons.
Yes, she's going to be starting to do yoga.
I did a little yesterday.
Good
I did
girl.
5
Good.
minutes.
That's so cool. That's so cool. And I did it. I got my mirrors yesterday for the studio because I like looking at myself when I'm doing yoga. I admit it. I like it.
Yeah.
It helps
do
me.
that.
It helps me stay in the fun of it instead of what I tend to do, which is make everything hard work.
We need the
Even yoga.
feedback. We need to see that, something, we need to adjust here or adjust there.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, and too.
Yeah.
I think we should admit it's fun to look at yourself.
I'm pro narcissist.
Yeah.
Like not the negative social thing that started happening, but enjoying what you see in the mirror helps you not take everything out on other people. Like when
Exactly.
you have satisfaction with that, like I really think narcissism comes from jealousy and envy of anybody else who hates the people that they like to look at. Like the beauty is, this is another conversation.
Well, it really,
But-
it really is.
When you
This
enjoy-
is how this happens. This is like
I know, but
we have lateral brains, all three of us. So we
I
just
never-
start wafting off into the universe whenever we talk about anything.
anyway, so looking
Yeah.
at yourself is okay. That's all we're saying.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, for today, that's all we're saying is it's okay to look at yourself.
It just
you know?
means you're checking to see if your back is straight.
Yeah,
and you're,
yeah. Because
Yeah.
sometimes
you
it's
know, you're
hard.
in the right position and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that you're not hurting something inside
Yes,
your body.
because you don't ever want to push beyond effort.
Effort.
You don't want to push into discomfort. It's just effort.
Yeah, that's how
And when you're doing yoga, my favorite one was Iyengar, because you had to hold the poses for so long, and for someone who's massively manic bipolar, that really was the best thing in the world for me. And what she would keep, what my teacher that I enjoyed so much kept saying is, we'd be in this pose and you'd be going, oh my God, are we done yet? And she'd go, okay, everybody breathe and sink into it further.
I love when you say breathe, my whole body listens.
I know.
It's like, okay.
Yeah, I know.
Isn't that
You
funny?
just go into breathing.
And so you'd sink in, and then you start to get uncomfortable again. At first it feels pretty good, then you get uncomfortable again,
Yeah.
and then she'd say it again. Okay, everybody, breathe and sink further into the pose. Relax into the pose, and she'd always say that. She'd say you relax into the pose, which for somebody like me was really important.
Yeah.
Because I didn't relax into anything naturally.
Yeah.
Relaxing really wasn't what I did naturally. This is.
So it was.
We have a group
had
of
to
friends
work
that
on it,
will
right?
be visiting us from time to time. They're our extended Southern Sisters family here in Oklahoma, and what they've all laughed about is that in 2019, I decided to sit down 5 minutes every afternoon and see if I was tired. And let's see, this is 3 years later, and I've discovered that I was exhausted all the time. But when you're manic bipolar, what people don't understand who aren't that kind of bipolar is that when you're stressed and you're tired, your body kicks into high gear. It sends in more adrenaline.
Yeah. It just keeps you up.
Yeah. So it's a little different beast than depressed bipolar, which is where you want to get up and go do something. But when I've been manic for months, I finally do stop walking my couple of miles a day or whatever. And that's when it really does have to be yoga or nothing. Because everything else, my body's pumping up to do it. It even wants to pump up to do yoga, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
Because that's not the idea.
Not the goal.
It's not the idea. Now, what I did when I was thinking about this is I kept thinking about Goethe. And I just knew Goethe had a quote, on
Yeah.
mindfulness somehow. So this morning I was trying to look something up, and this is hilarious. My favorite picture frame has a picture of this friend of mine and I when we were, I think I was 47 and she was a little bit younger. So it was basically 20 years ago or more. Well, it was more now. But anyway, the top of the frame says, "Nothing is more important than this day." And I had the letters to spell this out at my other house, and I was gonna put it in this big round room I had. And now I've decided I was gonna do it across the rafters of the bedroom. That it's a Goethe quote, and I never knew that.
Oh my gosh.
I never knew that. And this is the rest of the quote. Nothing is more important than this day. You cannot relive yesterday, and tomorrow is still beyond your reach. Which is basically what Buddha said, each morning we are born again.
Yes.
That's so amazing that you had a synchronicity with a quote, because I had one this morning too, with
funny.
my inspiring quotes email of the day. It says, "You build your mind, so make it into something you want to live with."
Oh God,
I
yeah.
couldn't believe that
Oh
it
my
mentioned
goodness.
the mind, because most
I
of
like
them
that.
don't
talk about the
strictly
mind. Well,
but
because
that's today's.
the mind gets to be kind of a naughty word
Yeah.
in some of our woo-woo circles.
And then
know.
Sadhguru's quote as well is very relevant.
Uh-huh.
And I'm imagining this as your mind saying it. I am not dedicated to your comfort. I am dedicated to you breaking barriers within yourself. So the mental aspect of the mind wants to cage, wants to divide, which the intellect is great. It helps us organize the world, but it also cages us in
Yes.
and creates all
Yes.
those
Yeah.
swords that we
Yeah.
use to cut each other with and cut up the
Yes.
world.
Yeah.
So mindfulness is like, okay, here's the cage, but there are cracks in the bars. There's
you pause so you
for-
can see the spaces
for
between the
mind
bars.
to flow out from. Yes.
Yeah.
And you can come and go out of the cages.
Yeah.
All the cages as you please.
Okay, so I'm going to mention what I mentioned to Penny earlier, is that I've been meditating an hour a day for 10 months now. This morning I did a half hour, and when I was in the half hour meditation, I thought, I wonder what it would be like to, just as an experiment, take one day and set my alarm for 2 hours, every 2 hours, and do those 3 deep breaths every 2 hours on purpose.
Yeah.
I'm
Try it.
pledging that I'm gonna do it before our next podcast. So
And
I can
I will
tell
too.
you. Okay, and
Okay.
Penny
I will
will
do
too.
that
Every
also.
2 hours. I mean, I'll try it. I'm very, very bad at regimented time.
Well, and you can tell who the younger one is. We've
Yes.
got plenty of time to do
Yes,
something
we
every
have
2
plenty of
hours.
time.
You know, when you're younger, you know, it's about movement and building and
No, it's
and
never
you
been
know,
about that for me.
it was
I was born 100 years old.
Yeah, I know. But
Sorry,
for
I'm sick.
for most people, it is. It's a, you know, when you hit your 30s, you're building a life, which we talked about yesterday, which you kind of felt that same urge.
Yes.
You know, you
very
do.
much
You
so.
feel that urge. I believe it's hormonal, because I felt the same
Or
thing in my late 30s.
I think it's just acceptance. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, well, whatever is going on right now is my foundation, because I
Yeah.
haven't really succeeded in building one otherwise so far.
You just don't know. You
I've been
just don't
traveling. The
know.
whole world has been becoming more cosmopolitan. So,
Oh, yes.
and we mentioned the other day, or was I talking to someone else? I can't remember now. Yeah, this was yesterday, I think, at lunch. There's a whole generation of children who were raised in the army who were traveling
We did
for
talk
their
about that
formative
yesterday.
years.
Yes.
Yeah, I mentioned that.
My dad was
because-
in the
yeah.
army for my first 7 years. Those
Yeah.
are literally the years that your brain is trained to do what it's going to do for the rest of its life. That's the
Yes.
pattern.
Definitely.
That either you're going to have to work incredibly hard to break,
Yeah.
or
It's not set up for
just
children.
yeah,
You know, that
the travel
lifestyle is
life.
not set up for
No.
set up for children. My husband, the reason I'm aware of it is because my husband is from a military background. He wasn't in the military, but multiple generations of men in that family were multiple generations of men who did not know their fathers.
Yeah.
And that's what I've
Right.
explained to both of my sons when I finally realized that. You know, I explained it to my sons and their wives. I said, you need to know this
Yes.
because it affects relationships, your ability to make them, nurture them, and maintain them. You
I
know?
just wanted to- this was accidental.
She's getting
but
itchy.
Healing.
Okay.
Healing was on top there.
Wow.
Speaking of all this.
Yeah,
it's the
Imagine
same.
yourself
Healing.
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 So that's all I saw.
Mhm.
Imagine yourself and your beloved surrounded by light. Feel your relationship being healed this very moment. I'm just gonna draw some more. Keep talking. I was just gonna
Lay that out because I always like the artwork.
Okay.
Show them the artwork.
Oh right.
Don't
right.
cheat. I like the artwork. There we go.
Healing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope that's focusing well since we're sideways. Penny, tell us a little bit about your formative years and however your mind was trained from the start.
That children should be seen and not
Not
heard.
Yeah.
And being the oldest of two, I should always know better.
Yeah.
Those are just plastered in my brain. It was very different back then how children were perceived. And those things stay with you, and it's unless you purposefully change them, they stay with you always. So you can always.
So what are you working on changing? Because you've been going through some big changes. I think we need to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Because Penny wasn't with us last week when we
Right.
talked about our origin. Penny's part of our origin.
Yes.
Because Penny and I met through a group of friends that we share. And I knew right away we had some things in common, I could just tell.
Yes.
And but we didn't get close until Penny almost died this spring. And I was the closest to the hospital, and I get up the earliest in the day because I often don't sleep, or didn't.
And
It's
she
getting
was
better now,
right there
but I was
when
still
I
awake
woke
at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning every night when this was going on. So I went in every morning so I could listen to the doctors and then send stuff to Penny's family, and that's how we started getting acquainted.
Yes.
Which is hilarious.
And she speaks to all my family now.
Yeah.
Phone.
Yeah.
None of them live here where I live.
Well,
in
we have that in
Oklahoma.
common. We don't have relatives where we are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that makes a big difference.
Yeah, it
And
does.
it's so wonderful to meet a group of people that sort of like ages and
Yeah.
Well, we're kind
Me,
of
the
different
oldest.
generations.
Yeah, with the three of us,
Right.
it's like more like 3 generations
Yes.
because Penny and I are 11 years apart, and then you and I are 30 years apart, so
yes,
40 years apart.
times change.
Times do change, and what we found out is that the 3 of us have a very common worldview, and where we're living, our worldview is unusual. You spend a lot of time hiding in plain sight, and so it changed my life just getting to know Penny, and hers
then
too.
As soon as Stella mentioned her, I was like, we gotta all get together.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we were both talking, or you said in the last podcast
Yeah.
how you've been thinking about this woman thing.
Mm-hmm.
And this whole past year for me, it's been me, my mom, and my grandmother in one household.
Yes.
So we had the maiden mother crone dynamic. And I'm just desperate to keep that because it's so important
Yes.
for women, and I think it's
Oh,
important
it
for
is.
men as well,
Yes.
peripherally.
Yes, it is.
That women have a strong network.
It's important that
It
that
is.
everybody has a strong network.
Yeah.
My husband is now learning to make friends, and the men that he's known longer actually are harassing him at this point about not calling.
Oh.
That they're starting to
The
tease him.
hormones are changing.
Yeah, they're starting to tease him about that he doesn't call, that
Well-
that he doesn't hold up his side, and they're starting to give him a hard time about it, and they're all having a good time, and he's working on this,
Yeah.
which I think is
That's
just
good.
so wonderful because friends are important.
Oh,
Yeah.
definitely.
And
Yeah.
right now, even young people are really struggling with this because
Yes,
our friends
yes.
are either on the internet entirely
Mhm.
or just scattered.
Yes.
It goes
Yeah.
with the whole traveling thing.
Mhm.
Like we don't stay in one place long enough to build up that base. So everyone, I think there's
There's a lot that's been lost that way.
Yes.
yeah.
Because I grew up, I just wanted to mention right quick, I grew up with 4 generations actually, but my mother wasn't present with what I was experiencing most of the time. I had myself, my grandmother, and my great-grandmother. So I had the same thing. And we were tight. The 3 of us were very tight, So they really, and they talked together about me too, because my great-grandmother wouldn't always say things. She did if we were alone. But if there was something that she didn't want to mess with, she'd tell my grandmother and Mama would tell me, you know. Like, I guess when I was younger, I drove with my hands up in the air a lot when I was driving on the highway. And I had driven my Mama Mary to Oklahoma City, you know, chatting all the way up and all the way back. And I heard from my grandmother that Mama Mary was terrified the entire time we were in the car together. And so that's when I learned to keep my hands on the steering wheel.
I think that's something for women to be mindful of, is we can be passive aggressive like that and talk about each other instead of bringing something up to somebody, and then we hear about something that was said about us, even if it wasn't said in a bad way.
Yeah.
We'll hear it, and just because it was said behind our backs, we take it personally in a bad way.
Well, everybody does. Men do too.
Yeah.
I've worked around men all my life because I wasn't attracted to things women did, traditionally. And men are exactly the same way.
Yeah.
You know, we have language, and that really does mess with things a lot. I want to talk about this, as you know.
Well,
if you're in the
we
forest,
can say feminine, masculine.
language is no big deal, because if you're tired or something, you just growl, and your people know to leave you alone.
Yep.
If you're a human, we've got words, so we can be messing with this for months after it's happened. A simple growl.
That is, words are the mind in the mental sense.
Yes, they are.
Um,
And you know, that's part of what I think is so good about meditation, for me anyway, is separating from language.
Yes.
Because I've tried different kinds of meditation. I've done Transcendental's what I learned first. That was when I was 17. And then 3 years ago, I decided to try some like traditional Hindu chants. And I tried that for a while, and I found that helpful. And then I found that I thought that for me, because I'm so audio and so verbal, obviously, that toning was the best thing for me. No words, even if it's a different language. Somehow I find that distracting.
Describe toning, because I don't know what it was.
That's right. Well, it's a term I use. I don't know what other people use, but it's just making a sound. And what I learned to do after a year was I could vibrate my entire body. And I started thinking about that because I was reading about the lymph system, you know, and I was very sick. And every time I went to a doctor, I went to Mayo Clinic, I went to all kinds of places. On paper, I looked healthy, and I so obviously was not, you know. So it was part of my trying to heal myself path I've been on. And so what I do is I just go, and I can feel that. I can feel the vibration in my feet. I can feel it at the top of my head. And my masseuse, when I would do that when I first knew him, he would say that it immediately opened up all my chakras. He was using a pendulum to check up your chakras. And he said that the minute I do that, everything was just like open all the way up and down.
Wow.
And now I guess they're probably open most of the time, because when I went in this last time, I hadn't seen him for 10 months, 11 months, and he said they were all open.
Wow.
So I think I've just done it so
That's
much, because what happened is eventually I was doing this all the time. I'd be out in public and I'd realize I was toning, standing in the grocery line. You know, I was doing
Get used to it,
all the
yeah.
time. I was awake, basically.
It feels great, even just, you just have such a wonderful voice too.
Oh, wow.
I need practice with this, big time, because even
Well-
speaking sometimes I just feel like,
Well, it's
I
all
can't
up
get
here.
there
I can
now.
hear it.
Yeah.
It's all up
Yeah.
here. And it's, you
Yes,
know,
it's a different
we're
tone.
vibrational beings. I think
Yeah.
about this so much, you know, that because I love quantum physics, and I just love reading about it. You know, it's so poetic and beautiful.
It is. I
And-
don't understand how the quantum physics, the science side of it, can't see the poetry of it. It's like the poets can
Well,
see the science.
Actually, the theoretical physicists
Sorry.
can.
I
They're the
hope
poets.
so.
They're the poets in their world.
Yeah,
The theoreticians
yeah.
are always the poets in their world. And what I like is that because I've read about string theory and I liked it, I picture that when I'm meditating, and that this is all just vibrations.
Strings,
It's
yeah.
just strings, vibrations.
It
and-
literally is.
Yeah.
I mean,
And that's part of what I thought about when I was trying to get my lymph system cleared. Part of my theory was that if I toned and I vibrated my whole body, it would help clear out my lymphatic
Yeah.
system. yeah.
And
No
if you-
idea, I'm not a doctor, obviously.
And if you visualize it while you're doing that, like just
Yeah.
knocking them into alignment, I don't know.
Yeah,
I visualize all kinds of weird stuff.
well, yeah, now, I am curious, what came up here?
Oh, okay.
'Cause you
So
laid
the
it out.
first one,
Yeah.
well, first of all, I gravitated to these because they're two figures just kind of laying like a supine, I guess you would call that. I don't know.
And then show us. I gotta
No,
put my
they're
glasses
face
back
down.
on.
That's not supine. And we had this theme last time. You pulled two cards that were people embracing.
Oh, and these are
came right.
hermit
one right
cards.
after another,
These are basically hermit cards.
which is the card of the day today that I already posted on the
Oh,
Facebook page.
oh, that's funny.
If
Yeah.
you
Oh my
could do
gosh.
anything, what would it be? The answer dwells in your heart, not in your mind. For the heart is the gateway to the soul. Surrender. At times we must surrender the old before something new can enter our lives. Let go and all will work out.
That's actually mindfulness in a nutshell.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
And I pulled over here the Two of Wands and the Emperor. And as you were talking about your formative years, the like children should be seen,
Seen,
and
not heard.
I flipped over the Five of Pentacles, which is, you described that last time. Help is all around you, but you're not seeing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That whole like generations past was kind of operating in that mode.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
with the Two of Wands, that's the card of like new territory. You're looking out, you've got the world in your hands, you're looking out over the ocean, like, look what we're about to do. And it is the card of Mars and Aries. The moon is full and in Aries right now. I bought this necklace yesterday. I had no idea why I was drawn to it, but then I woke up this morning like, wait a second, it's the Hunter moon. And Aries moved into, the moon moved into Aries as we were starting this podcast, like just minutes ago.
Yeah.
So then we've got the Emperor as well, which is a very like Martian, Mars and Aries
Yeah.
thing. It's time to get our authority, all of the sense of inner authority. We all need to find that. Because we're
Inner
facing a new world,
authority.
a new kingdom, where everyone is mastering themselves, their own minds, and we're getting rid of this poverty mindset that comes with the Five of Pentacles.
Yeah. I heard Carolyn Miss speak this morning. Are you familiar with her?
No.
Okay, well she's old now, like we are. So I read her
Me.
back in the 80s, I guess, probably. Have you read her?
I've heard of her, and
Yeah.
I've read a few things.
And actually, she's an army brat. She comes from a that kind of background, but she's a woo-woo writer. So, so she's like this interesting combination of kick you in the ass to get you to be mindful. She's
I've always felt that in me. I'm
kind of
like,
interesting.
I actually am Libra Sun, Aries rising. So
Yeah.
the whole notion of having a persona in the world, that's what your rising sign is. Mine's
Uh-huh.
an Aries, which is this brash, like, just do
Yeah.
it, break through the walls.
Yeah.
Individual energy.
Yeah.
And then Libra's the sign of partnership and peace and calm, non-confrontational. And I'm like, no, let's confront.
Yeah.
That sounds
yeah.
fun. Because it will lead to peace. It will lead to resolution. Anyway. Yeah, the tension between the opposites, but that's just what happens when you're rising in consciousness.
Yeah.
Because you're coming out of duality into non-duality.
Yeah.
You're seeing that all opposites reconcile and are like this, not
Yeah.
like this.
And that moment when you're seeing all those opposites, that's it. For people who have, quote, and I say this, I mean this, quotes, mental illness, because as you know, I now believe that that's just long-term distress, and it's progressive. And so eventually you can be out in the woods and able to live in this society and have people treat you like you're
yeah.
a different kind of being,
Yeah.
and all it is it's just that you've had so much misfortune in your life that your mind is no longer operating
In the mind of
in
the rest
in
of
the
world.
mind of the rest of the world, because this is, we all agree to a reality,
Yes.
and
Yes.
and Carol Miss was talking about that actually, and that everything's fiction,
Yeah.
and she's like, she was talking about spell casting, and that everything is spells. When you watch a commercial, it's a spell. They're telling you you need this, you know?
Yeah.
I love the way she used the word spell this morning. That's why I kept listening to it.
Yeah, that's
You
kind
know.
of the whole thing now is spells are literally language. Like,
Yeah, they're
spell
language.
it
It's
out.
just language.
The
Yeah.
word mental, like,
Yeah.
or that thing, the whole mental thing is those bars, like when you're walking past homeless people and you don't even recognize them as human,
Yeah.
that's a mental cage that you're in.
Yes.
Mindful
Yes.
is, again, when the mind can see past those bars and be
Yeah.
like, oh my God, this is me sitting here
Yeah.
without
And
shelter, food,
yeah, yeah.
love.
And I guess that's been my frustration with people from my background, which is comfortable. I'll put it that way, comfortable. That their version of doing good is to do good to somebody.
Yes.
It isn't to do good with somebody, and there is a difference. And I accidentally fell into that because I was so damaged that I couldn't do good to.
Yeah, of
I
course.
had to go do good with. I was a musician, so I would go and play music for people, and then I would sit and have lunch with them when I lived in Seattle. So I was with people who were on the street, and I heard their stories, and I found out what was going on. And I never met anybody that wasn't pretty eloquent and couldn't tell
Yeah.
me exactly what their life was about and why that was happening. And even this one flipped. Pressure, transformation.
Ah, here we are. Pressure
I'm the
on
instigator.
the conscience of
Always the
everybody
instigator.
here. Yes, people are usually very aware of their circumstances. Doing Uber, so many people just jump in, and it is immediately taxi cab confession because I am the no
Interesting.
boundaries.
Interesting.
My energetic feel like, and
Yes.
I've realized like I basically am clear quartz. I just take it all in. I transmute it. I've learned that I can do that without taking it onto myself. So I can let them do that without feeling burdened by it. Now, that took a lot of practice, but I'm so impressed by people.
She's
And
talking to you.
I really sometimes can't fathom how they can be so aware of their whole thing, their issues. But I also know what it's like to be that aware and still not be able to change. Sometimes it really is a timing thing and a healing
Yes.
thing. And
Yes.
if you are not healed enough, you can't get out of the spot that you're trying to get out of.
No.
That's why deliberate mindfulness. Do I need to let her in?
Yeah, go ahead. Thanks. Yeah. We're letting Masha in.
She wants to be part of
She wants
this.
to
Yeah.
be on camera.
Yeah,
She
she knows there's a party.
Needs to be.
Yeah,
She
hello,
is
baby.
the most beautiful dog.
Yes.
in the
Take a baby
universe.
girl.
Sweet.
We'll have to
I'm
show her
sorry, Stella.
sometime.
This is Stella and Stella.
Yeah. The two Stellas.
Yeah. Yeah, there's babies.
Let's see if I had.
Yeah, that's, and that's, I've had that experience here where we live. I talked to a guy one day down at this lake I walk at, and he was bipolar 1 like I am, manic bipolar 1 like I am. And he was so eloquent, and the way he spoke about his life was so beautiful. Trauma, he left home when he was 9. He started telling other kids that his mom said he could spend the night at their house, and he got away with that for a couple of years before he got caught. Can't even believe that. He was in a small town. Probably some people knew, because that's the way small towns are, and they tend to take care of their own in small towns.
Yeah.
But he finally met an older man who gave him work to do, and he learned some skills. And then he told me, he goes, and of course I ended up in jail, and I learned skills in jail. He had such a good attitude about his life, and
You find that a lot. People that
Yeah.
go through harder circumstances have
Yeah.
great attitudes and
Yeah.
good feelings.
Yeah.
People who are privileged there's a lot of stuff hidden under rugs and in closets,
God, yes.
and a lot of pain.
yes, lots.
Just, I think it's emotional and it manifests physically as well.
Yes, it does.
Whereas, some people are in horrible physical shape and they're out living this raw life.
Yeah.
And they're hunky-dory. I mean, there's something in the brain takes over in that situation.
Yeah.
Like, you just kind of do what you gotta do.
Yeah.
And honestly, in my experience of that, like, I was kind of a vagrant in my early 20s. I never actually had to live out of my car, but I was prepared just in case. I got adapted to lean circumstances because it felt better. It felt better to just be dust on the wind, not have to carry the bulk of material life around with you. I've like thrown away so much stuff, like just accumulate and disperse, accumulate and disperse.
I have a friend that lives like that. Well, you're gonna meet her, Trish.
Oh yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, Trish lives like that. She always has.
Yeah, she's gonna help us with the editing and the technical stuff.
Yeah.
So right now we're just doing whatever we can with whatever we have.
Yeah. And in a few weeks we'll have somebody telling us what to do. We'll feel so much better.
Yeah, I don't even know how to do like actual podcasting yet. We're just doing YouTube podcasts, which is a video cast, or I don't even know if there's another term for it. But
I was
we'll
going
get there.
to mention, since we were talking about mental versus mindfulness, it's something I read to prepare for this day. It says, the mindfulness movement profiles the growing number of people who believe mindfulness, a peaceful quality, attention, anyone can develop by simply focusing on the present moment in a non-judgmental way. It is the key to creating a healthier, happier world. And that just sounds so good.
It does.
And
it is.
And it's so simple.
And it isn't new.
The key.
And it isn't new.
This has
It's
been Asian
ancient.
thought for
Ancient, yes.
thousands of years.
Yes.
Yep. Well,
but-
that's what we do. We ignore the simple.
Yeah.
We
Well,
think because we're complex, or that we
Yeah.
should be geniuses, or the highest animal, or highest order animal.
That's-
Yeah, it
That's
doesn't
what
take a lot of
Well,
time.
that's what the Europeans
Yeah.
spread when they started
Right.
moving around.
Yeah.
And they were probably the least advanced civilization in medicine and mental wellness. They were the least well
Yeah.
of, if you wanted to call it like an Asian civilization, Euro civilization, and then, like maybe more island civilizations, calling the United States Turtle Island, thinking about it that way. That they were probably the least advanced in every other area but brutality.
Brutality, yes.
Which is, it's like, there's this guy named Oren Lyons that I really have enjoyed watching on YouTube. I don't know if he's still alive. I haven't checked lately, because he wasn't young when I was watching him like 4 or 5 years ago. And he's Native American, and he'll kind of cast his eyes to the side and go, well, the Christians were hard for us.
Oh my gosh.
And it's not the Christianity of Christ, but the Christianity of Rome,
I bought this card earlier.
Yeah.
It is a little, it's the Knight of Cups.
Oh, it's so
He's got
cute.
armor on.
Yeah.
And that just reminds me, like, that was the level of consciousness, though, at the time. Everyone
Yes.
had a level of armor.
Yes.
We were coming out of physical,
Yes.
bare bone, like essentials only.
Yes. Yeah.
And just learning to judge and be like, this is higher quality than that. This human is higher quality than that other human. And so it was just a necessary phase in human existence. But now we can start to lift that.
The veil.
What's that called? The helmet thing.
The visor.
Yeah.
Visor, maybe?
Yeah, that works.
We just
I don't know if they called it
Good
that.
job,
then.
Penny.
We can set our
It
armor
may have been
down.
called something else.
Or if it feels more comfortable, keep the armor on. Just, lift it up every once in a while.
Take
Yes.
peeks. Yeah.
Yes.
I
I've
pulled
been
another
safe
card right
now.
before she started talking, and this one's changed.
Change, and we just had
Jeez.
transformation,
Yeah,
pressure.
pressure.
Do they both say? Oh, thunder moon. Huh.
Thunder moon.
Thunder moon. Are we
Yeah.
going to get rain here in Oklahoma?
Yeah.
I think we need it. I was just taking
Oh,
a
yes,
walk.
it is
it's
dry.
a drought.
Yeah, my skin.
Really worried.
My skin has felt so dry when I get up in the morning.
Yeah.
They
And,
say-
that just is such a weird feeling after all the humidity we have
Yeah.
all summer in
Right.
this part of the country.
It did feel jarring.
It is.
I was
It
like,
happened
why-
really quickly.
Why don't I hear the water today?
Yeah.
Oh, the creek is dry.
Right, and they said that it is so severe that in parts of Oklahoma that the hay cost has gone
gone
sky
up.
high,
Oh.
and that they don't think they're gonna have enough hay to feed the animals.
It's affecting everything.
Yes.
Here's protection. protection. It's
Okay.
change
You're
and
protected
protection.
through these transformations.
Yes.
That's, yeah, people
Trust
are,
that.
people in the
So we
United
need
States
rain.
don't seem to be aware of this. In Europe, everybody's ready for shortages. I hear them talking about it.
Yes.
In the United States, nobody's saying a word about this, except I know that our local butcher, he already knows that he can't get enough turkeys for Thanksgiving this year. People aren't going to be eating
Okay.
turkey,
Oh my
So
goodness.
that's
and they don't even know
mindful
it yet.
Oh.
versus mental right there. We're
Yeah.
mental because we only respond to panic news.
Yeah.
Like
But
okay,
that's-
time to go buy
But that's
toilet
how we stay
paper,
alive
time
in the
to go
woods.
buy-
You know, that's the brain is set up to keep us alive on this plane.
Exactly.
And so it notices anything negative and grabs it so that you're going to survive it.
But
You
we
know?
can live in that state
Yeah.
of being mental where it's just the brain overriding our higher reasoning.
Yeah.
Or we can be like, oh, we can prepare for this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
observe.
We're ordering
the
a ham for
patterns
Thanksgiving.
and I'm really concerned.
That's how we're
because
preparing for
There you
Thanksgiving.
I think the pandemic led to this really negative change where people are used to ordering takeout now and they get everything online so they don't ever have to leave the house.
Right.
That's really feeding isolation and depression, and people are just living a little closed off life.
Well,
And if you
yes.
have money, you don't have to worry about any of that. Like
Yeah.
just order.
yeah, and you're fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. We got a lot more people on the streets in the town we're living in.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what's going on here. Passion.
Ah, that should go with
The-
the heart cards.
Yeah.
Probably. The soul, passion. Oh, I can show you. The camera's a little further away today.
Yeah.
It's hard to. I don't think my autofocus is doing so great with the distance, but
Dark
hopefully we can
matter.
get some good
What's in
views.
top?
Yeah.
Mystery.
Mystery and dark matter. Yep, that looks kind of like the tower card there. The tower, something bursting through. And when there are major changes, I mean, it doesn't feel good. Our advantage here is that we've already been through it. We went through it before anybody else did.
Yeah.
So now we're prepared
Yeah.
to assist
Yeah.
if anybody's struggling during the times that the collective is going through things.
And we want to mention here, if you are feeling deep desperation, please call
Reach out.
the hotline. There's a national hotline now. Do you remember what the number is? Is it 811?
Oh, I've never known these things. These things
Well,
don't help me
I just
personally.
heard about it.
Leave a comment. Talk to me. Talk to
Can
us.
I have my? Would you hand me my phone? And
yeah.
I'll just Google right quick because I think we want to mention this.
Okay.
Yes.
You know, and here's something I didn't know most of my life because I didn't do it because I had no bloody boundaries. Is that most people spend time with people who think the way they think, and actually, I think that's probably a good thing. I have not done that, and I've it's made my life harder.
Yeah, we've
I s-
suffered for it.
Yeah,
and
we
now
have
we're finally
suffered
like,
for it.
okay.
And now
Yeah.
that the three of us found each other, now we see what it does for you to be around people who think like you think or feel like you feel. And so if that's a church, if it's a circle around a campfire in the woods at night, whatever it is, if it's just being around animals, go be around animals. Folks who are struggling, animals are very helpful. And they know you. If you've got PTSD, horses are extremely helpful because they're prey animals.
Yes.
So they actually don't care for people who are very narcissistic, you know, who want to tell them what to do. And most of the time, people who have been abused or they've been to war or something, they've learned how to watch everything, and that's the way a horse is. So they recognize that you are like them, and they're very good therapy for that reason. And there are lots of places now, all over the country, that are using horses for therapy. But even if you just know somebody who has a horse, this is what I did years ago. That's how I found out that it was helpful. I was trying to work my strength back up, and I went out to just help. Yeah, Sharon's, my friend Sharon's, to muck the barn. I just wanted to upper body strength, and I found out that I had this thing with horses. I'd never been around horses before.
So cool.
Yeah, and that's how I found out about it. And then I found out since then that there's, therapy. People are using horses for therapy, and so I can suggest that too. Also, I can suggest just being outside, and lots of people are saying that now. That is how I can quote. I won't say controlled. Lived with my cycles when I was growing up. I spent a lot of time outside every single day, hours every day. And when I became very ill, when I moved back here, eventually I started going, how did I do this before I was taking medication for bipolar? How did I do this? And then I went, I ate right.
We got nature, we
Got nature and
physical
meditated,
exercise
was physical,
Yeah.
and so I just started changing the things that I could that way. And I'm
Well-
just gonna see if I can find this hotline thing. Go ahead and talk, and then I'll.
And I still run into this problem where I have a mental block against living more mindfully. I still really like fast food. I don't like changing my diet. I need it to be easy because I wait till the last minute to eat.
Yeah.
And exercise too. I hate just making time for exercise. If it's something like that, like a practical thing, mucking the barn, if that was something I had to do, I'd be happy to do it. But there's nothing really physical that needs to be done. And like gardening, I just don't enjoy that. So I think a lot of modern people really struggle with enjoying some of the things that would help us, but we just gotta experiment with things.
Yeah,
like what does work for us?
My nature is like yours. I come from a background where my friends always wanted to go to clubs and work out and stuff, and I would do that with them, and I never liked it. I like for it to have purpose. That's
Yeah.
why I went out and said, can I muck in your barn? I even said, I know most people wouldn't be asking this,
beautiful
but can
thing
I
too.
muck in your
Not a
barn?
norm.
You can ask people if you can do things for them.
Yes.
That could be
That's true.
Double-sided therapy.
I'll be right back. Okay, we wanted to mention the new National Mental Health Crisis Hotline. It's 988. So you can remember that it's like 911, but it's 988. And I will let you know.
It's just 988.
988. Yeah,
Okay.
creation
I was
of,
waiting for
of
the rest.
988.
Like, oh.
That's it. It's a 24/7 3-digit crisis hotline. And it says it's the gateway to any crisis system and is a core service that should be available in every community. The 3-digit crisis hotline should be provided with sufficient resources to ensure, and that's what President Biden just did.
Oh, okay.
So, and that was from
that's
the
great.
National,
Awesome.
NAMI is a National Organization for Mental Health.
I
Oh,
was just doing a little showing of our spread there.
Yeah.
It's probably very unprofesh, but that's a little bit of our shtick right now.
Yeah,
we
it
just
is.
I had to
We
go
hope we
get a
can make you
battery
laugh
from my
today.
house.
Yeah. There you go.
I exhibited poor battery mindfulness today.
our little group gets together and we laugh a lot.
We
and
do laugh a
decided
lot.
that's
Yes.
it helps our health.
And we're all slow with the internet age. I'm 37, Stella's 67, and Penny's 88. We'll just say 87.
No,
Wait a
78.
minute here.
79. She's 79.
79.
Yeah,
I
she's
thought
gonna
you
be
were
80
80.
this spring.
Where did I get the number 88 from?
I don't know.
She thought it was 80.
I thought it was
and
80.
I said, excuse me, I have another year.
I have no idea. I thought you were 88 this entire time because I just thought Stella had said that at some point. And then I was like, maybe she said 87 and we're all sevens. There was another 7 somewhere.
Yeah, it was somebody who was it? It's somebody I met. She was 47.
Yeah. We had the 37,
What was that?
47.
It was that one. It was that discussion.
Maybe, okay.
37, 47,
Synchronicities
67.
Get insane. And this is when I get manic. I was getting manic this morning when I saw these quotes and they were both relevant. It's a great thing. I want to stop talking about it as though it is a solely negative thing because
But
I love it.
Just to go through that, it's
No,
Well-
it is connection. It is when your mind sees the connections in everything. I mean, you become one with the universal mind. It is a mystical experience which people don't understand.
okay.
Yeah.
But you have to regulate it because
Yes,
I
you
mean,
do.
there have been instances where I thought I was going to melt into the Godhead. You know, I thought my physical being was done. So, I mean, and it's just natural for me. Most like when people
Yeah.
talk about enlightenment and
They're describing
mindfulness,
what we go through.
and I'm just
Yeah.
like, okay, it has to be overrated because I didn't work for any of this unless it's all past life work. And I think it is a feminine masculine difference because men
Yes.
are the ones that really have led the like enlightenment. You know, they're the ones that kind of pedestalize it because I think they don't understand the feminine empathic, like we're the bleeding heart, like, and that's really how I imagine mania. It's not my mind bleeding out from me, it's my heart chakra bleeding out from every pore, connecting with everything.
Mine's a little
Once,
different.
all at once,
Yeah.
probably.
Well,
Somewhat,
there
sometime?
are definitely degrees. Like this morning,
Okay.
it started to get intense because everything was aligning so well, and when it happens, you just
You
it
get
is-
an adrenaline dump.
Yeah.
That's the physicality aspect. I'm the one that has read endlessly. That was my addiction. I've the last 3 years, I've been training myself not to read all the time. But before that, I read day and night. And so I've read the scientific versions, I've read the woo-woo versions, I've read everything in between. And physically what's happening is for us is that our body is releasing a lot of adrenaline and cortisol when that's going on.
yeah.
That's the physical aspect of
It
it.
does feel. I feel the stress of it.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's stressful on your body. It is stressful on your body. And what I've learned the long and very hard way is that when I have that going on, I must rest. And this is where people like us have a hard time being in a merchant society. Because in a merchant society, you're only as good as the hours you're spending out there. Making money generally for somebody else, but even if it's for yourself, the way it was set up is you had to put in 60 hours a week or whatever you want to do. And people like us cannot do that and stay well at all because it's all coming through the brain. I spoke about Hildegard Von Bingen last week, and I'm going to mention her again because she was a 12th century mystic, and I experience what mystics experience, and that's that I will wake up in the middle of the night, even if I've already been asleep, and it's just all coming through. All this information for how society can be better and people can, love each other more and all of this stuff. And my theory is that I read those kinds of things, and so when I'm in a manic state, those things come out through my filter.
Yeah.
That's my quote left brain version of that. Now the right brain version is totally different. It's from God.
Yeah.
It feels that way. You feel. Hey! What's she talking about? Would you put them outside? She wants to go outside. That's the other Stella letting us know that she's got
Come on,
needs. There you
Masha, you
go.
wanna
Go potty.
out?
Go on, Mashy. Stay with Stella. Yeah, good girl. Okay, so where were we?
She made an
Great
appearance.
dogs.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
Your right brain is God.
Yeah, right brain is
Pretty much.
God. Yeah, so thank you. So that's how it feels when it's happening. It feels, well, there's just nothing
And this
like
is
it.
in everyone, like, we're a very left-brained world. That is the Western
It's-
world.
yes.
Literally, like,
Yes.
I don't know if that's left. Yeah, left and right.
Left and-
Western.
And actually, they're not saying that's factual anymore, but I still think of it in it's still
At the
easy for me to
mental
think that way,
construct.
that as a mental construct.
Yeah.
Logic, left,
Yeah.
right,
Well,
global thinking.
if it's
That's
all
the way I think of it. It's
imagination,
more
then it-
global thinking, strictly creative aspect of it. I'm what they used to call a split brain person. When I've had hallucinations, part of me's going fighting the demon because I see and feel demons, and then the other side's going, this isn't real. This isn't.
Yeah.
This isn't
Same
real.
here.
And so I've never gone completely over. I've always got the two sides fighting in my brain, and going,
yeah, I had that down to the
yeah. You too.
the worst of the worst.
Yes.
It's like my, whatever I considered me, and the last, like, proton that was Allie was like, I'm still here and this is still weird, you know?
Yeah. And I used to wish I could just completely cross over and not go through the hell that frankly, that is when you're going through that. And I used to wish I could just crack all the way and never come back.
Well, that's a little case to be made for fear, like the attachment to being here, and like enough fear to not just let go of our existence.
I just didn't want to
Yeah.
go through this anymore.
I know.
That, you know, because it's just
Been there,
hellish.
even mentioning, like, you know, I never was like suicidal like most people think, but I have had those moments where it got dire, and I was like, do I need to do something? What do I do? Because I'm too chicken to commit suicide. That's the, like, I know that I would never do that, but in some moments, like, I felt how extreme that gets.
It does. It can get very extreme. I before I was 60, I thought of mine as battle fatigue. I would become suicidal after having been manic for 6 months. You know, because for me, the mania would start in April, and that's usually when I'd be suicidal. The first go around would be April, and then I'd be able to kind of pull myself back together, and but I was manic, totally manic, and by July I was in so much physical pain from the lack of sleep. You know, I would sleep 0 hours sometimes. A lot of times I'd be awake 36 hours at a time. And then maybe I'd sleep three nights in a row of 3 hours a night or 1 hour. It was just hellish.
Yeah,
And I didn't realize that other people didn't know what I meant when I said I wasn't sleeping. They thought I meant 5 or 6 hours.
Yeah,
Jesus.
like, no, literally no sleep.
I didn't realize that until I was like 65, that people were not understanding what I was saying.
Yeah,
I
I probably
thought I
wouldn't
was-
have gotten that because my mania is not quite like that. It wasn't until 2019, the big emergency.
Yeah.
That's when I was like, oh, I don't need sleep. I haven't slept or eaten in 24 hours.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
It's probably not good, but it feels
I
so
lived
good.
all my adult life like that. I'd be up 36 hours easily. And that's, you know,
So yeah, this is all kind of a different
It's hard.
topic.
yeah. Well, it kind
That
of is,
most
but
people
it's,
won't have to.
well, mental
hopefully-
and mindful, you know?
Yes.
It's back to that. The thing is that even if you have my degree of this, which is the kind that the people in the woods have, those are my peeps. Those are the people I have the most in common with, symptom-wise.
Yeah.
Okay, that for me, I would be what they called medication resistant. Nothing ever stops the mania. When I'm manic, nothing has stopped it. No pill on the market would bring me down from that. You know, not really. It would just slide it into a slightly different aspect of mania.
Okay.
You know.
So do you feel like mindfulness and healing is the only thing? Is mindfulness helping? Like your practices with that?
Well,
the
I
meditation?
believe, as you know, I do believe it has changed my life.
Yeah. You do. How
20
many
minutes a
hours
day
in the
didn't.
morning?
I did that all my life. 20 minutes of meditation did not work. It took an hour a day. And what I did is I pledged to do it 5 days a week, so I could have wiggle room. And what I found right away is that the hour felt so different to me than the 15 or 20 minutes ever had, that at the end of the 2 days I was ready to start again. You know, it was not hard for me to change into that habit because it felt so good.
Right.
And when I heard Dispenza describing what people experienced in that, I recognized it. I had been that way as a kid. I would go out into the countryside and I'd see a spider web, or I'd look up and I'd see the shadows in the trees, and I'd go straight into a meditation mode.
Yeah.
I was just good at putting myself into it as a kid. I was also, unfortunately, good at putting myself into mania. I didn't know that's what I was doing. I'd count to 10 really fast and jazz my body up, and I could do the work of 10 people. As a child, I did that. I did not know I was training myself to have a problem.
Yeah, I mean,
You know?
it's just like
I mean, as a little kid, I figured these things out.
It
That you
is.
could do these things with your mind.
you really can. You
That
have a
I
lot of
sure
power.
could have used a system where people who were like me would have seen and helped me.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
develop the correct skills to
Well, we are those people.
be healthy. That's
Yes.
why we're doing this.
Yes.
Because I'm looking back at this age and I'm going, oh, this is when my great grandmother and my grandmother turned back to me and went, you need to know these things. You know, I learned about weeds to eat. I learned yoga when I was 9 because my grandmother was doing it. You know, they did, these two women did their best to give me these kinds of information, you know, but because it wasn't so overtly thought of as part of society, it would be different now. If, you know, like if I was taught, well, I have this girl I want to come visit all of us. I've met somebody who's 19 who was diagnosed as
Hi,
bipolar
Izzy,
too.
if you're watching.
Hi, Izzy. And I really want Izzy to come visit with us because I've told her it'll make a huge difference in your life to talk to other people who live with the kinds of things you're actually living with. And I think everybody needs that no matter how they live.
Yeah.
You know, like if you're a vegan, it's always fun to be around other vegans because they have the recipes that you want, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think most people
You know?
do that. We don't because we go with
Because
everything.
we have no boundaries.
Yeah. Well, Penny had some thoughts that we got cut off before
Yeah.
So,
the battery
okay.
ran
Yeah,
out.
we boo-booed. Thank you.
So yeah,
Start talking, Penny.
we're mindfulness.
I just want to make sure that those of you who are listening are understand. Excuse me. What mindfulness is. I was not aware of it before we decided to discuss this, and what they gave as a simple sentence it's to share the science of a meaningful life, and to cultivate that. It can be through formal meditation. It's about giving your life as if it really mattered, living your life. I'm sorry.
I think that's a meaningful
Giving, living, I kind of liked it as a slip.
surrender. Like
Yeah.
give your
Or
life,
giving,
not just live
yes.
it.
Yeah.
As if
Yeah.
it really mattered, moment by moment to moment.
Mhm.
You start by maybe a little meditation, which just means taking maybe start 15 minutes or something like that out of your time. I know we're all busy. And just sit and maybe close your eyes and relax and think about where you are and what you are and what you want to accomplish with your job, your family, change something that you don't like that's going on in the family. It's a wonderful way of making everybody happy and
Preparing your
Excuse me.
mind for the day, or even
Or
just
just,
an
yeah.
investment too.
It's
Taking that time.
Yes,
Taking
it's an
that
investment
time
in
to-
your life.
yes, because you can,
Yes.
we women do lead the household quite often in this world, and you can make it as happy as you want it to be by you being happy.
Yeah, it's infectious,
It's very infectious, yes,
contagious.
Well,
and contagious,
And-
yes.
Penny's been dealing with some really terrible sciatica pain, and one of the things that she shared with me is she started walking down her back patio to the gate and then back every day, and just being mindful about walking
Yes.
and being outside. I thought that
And
was
it
wonderful.
felt wonderful, and some days I can do that without pain, and some days I can't. But I'm trying to do it every day. I'm sitting on ice packs
Yeah.
most of the time.
Do you need a new one?
No, I'm fine. It's frozen. I don't know. But anyway, I still can be with my friends and laugh a lot, because that's a very good,
If you're doing something,
Something,
that,
yeah,
that takes your
yeah,
mind off of it.
yeah.
Yes.
And also it's an investment in the future. And
Yes.
we're making something, we're creating
Right.
something that's going to last, you know?
Yeah.
So purpose will override pain.
Yes.
and
And
it's
laughter does too. I mean,
Oh,
laughter
yes.
laughter
releases
is
great
Yeah, laughter
chemicals.
is its own
yeah,
Yeah.
serotonin.
Yeah, all those happy chemicals. We like
Yeah.
those.
So you just recognize that your thoughts and emotions are fleeting and do not define you. So if you're thinking
Amen to
bad
that.
thoughts and so forth, it's time for you to think about putting in some good things that
Yeah.
you know about yourself, or that you want in your life.
And
And
pro-narcissists,
think on those.
think good things about yourself.
Yes.
It will make
Very
you a
much
better
so.
person, not a worse person.
I lived with a narcissist for far too long. And unfortunately, I stayed too long because it wore me down. And, it was not good for my sons. And we've all worked through that, and we live far apart, so I feel like I'm a different person than I was then. And I have been working on trying to get rid of all those thoughts, because every once in a while they creep back in,
Like
and
resentment.
I say, no, I'm
Sure.
not going there.
Yeah.
So
Well, part of the learning path for empaths is to step into a bit of that narcissist energy. Like, and the narcissist needs to learn from the empath. Like, instead
Yes.
of, like, right now there's a separation, clearly, because both parties need to heal from
Yes.
whatever
yes,
has occurred there.
Yeah.
and my
But
sons
Aries-
too.
We got the Aries full moon right now, and that Aries is the sign of, like, selfishness and individuality, like,
Really?
doing your thing.
okay.
Yes. So, yes, yeah. So, it is so important for empaths not to dwell in that victimhood space forever and just make an enemy of really the teacher that is narcissistic tendency, which our whole country has
That
been
seems
for,
to
well,
be the fad now.
yeah.
That's a good
and
way to put it.
Fad, yeah,
I like
yeah,
that. It's a fad. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, constantly taking selfies, constantly,
Right.
I think there's so much complexity to this.
It's really interesting.
We'll have to do a whole episode on this, actually. Like
Yes.
vanity versus.
Maybe that should be next week. What's the other word? Vanity.
I'll have to play with that one. It's not coming immediately.
Vanity. Well, we think of vanity as just thinking about yourself.
It's the
Yeah.
the outer layer, the persona, versus the whole depth of your individuation. Vanity versus individuation.
That's what I was
might be
going to
the
say.
same.
Maybe that's our two words for next week is vanity and individuation.
Yeah.
Let me write
Do you
that
know, we're
down.
sliding right into what I used to do. I used to throw salons at my house, and we would choose a word, and this was a lot less pressure because it was only once a month. But we would all come prepared to discuss one word.
Yeah. I
And
love that.
it was so much fun.
Yes.
Huh.
And here we're just getting a little polarization.
Yeah, we're
and
doing-
I love that.
because
I love
the-
duality. honestly.
The energy. Yeah. I'm doing our guy. I found his name again. I got to find this guy's name so I can tell people, because he's got a lot of good things online, and they're only like 15 minutes each, and they show you ancient things to do to help your body, and your mind body with energy. So I'll look his name up for next time. Let me write that down.
Should we do final thoughts? Penny, were you?
There we go.
We
keep
probably
going,
weren't even
Penny.
done there. Yeah, we've got more notes.
We jumped
Let's go.
in. Sorry.
You have more notes?
No,
No, you.
No, I do. Oh, well.
If you do. I have a few more things here that might be worth mentioning. I don't know, but yeah, let's go around the table and just do final thoughts. And you can start, Penny, or I can start. It's up to you.
Go ahead.
Still not while you talk.
A word that I've really latched onto lately is responsibility, but not as responsibility, as response-ability, like the ability to respond. And
that.
mindfulness is the ability to take that moment before you react
Yeah.
to decide how you're going to react.
Yeah.
Or act anyway versus react.
And breathing can help with that.
Yes.
I had a
time slows down like
pretty,
in the Matrix. That's what I wrote.
I don't want to use the word abusive. I want to find a different word. Catastrophic background. I don't know what word to use, but anyway.
Your foundation was the tower.
Yeah, it was pretty much the tower card. And, what did you just say? What were you just saying?
Time slows down.
Oh,
Response.
mindfulness. Okay, I swore I'd never have children because of the background I came from. I swore I would never get married, never have children. And I didn't until I was the age you are now, as you now know.
Yeah.
And one thing that I decided when I was going into this relationship, and I knew I was going to be around a kid who was already there, and then found out I got pregnant when I shouldn't have been able to. So I knew I was going to be dealing with two kids eventually. What I decided was that because my background was so brutal, that I would always take a breath before I spoke to those children if I was angry. And I run mixed state a lot, which we'll be talking about this. Most people don't even know, even if they're bipolar, don't know the term mixed state. Because it doesn't apply to very many of us, but I'm one of them, one of the lucky people. And it's when you run full-on mania and suicidality at the same time.
I couldn't believe that I had never heard of this before yesterday, because I do that.
Yeah.
It's the rare state. When I am suicidal, that's why it's complicated for me. Because
Yes.
I'm also like, but everything's awesome at the same time.
And the reason it's such a scary state is because, in my opinion anyway, as a patient, not as a doctor, as a patient, this is the way I see it. Because this last winter, I finally had suicide. I had depression by itself for a few months, okay? And I went to my counselor that I've known for almost 20 years now. And I said, this depression thing, this is a walk in the park compared to mixed state. I said, because when you're depressed, you don't have the energy to hurt yourself. And the thing that's awful about mixed state is not only are you that depressed, but you have the juice to do something, to make a plan and do something. And that is a very dangerous state to be in. And I have to say, honestly, that of course I never really wanted to die, because I've had plans running out my ears my entire life. I have been in and out of mental wards. The whole, I'm a classic bipolar patient that way. But I'm still here, because in the end, I will always call for help. And I don't have anything in my house that would be quick. And I do want to talk about this. I never have. For me, suicidal thinking was always based on battle fatigue. It was so hard to be here. It was so hard to try to live with other people who had no idea that I was walking around watching myself from above 24 hours a day for an entire year of my life. Nobody knew it, And if you are that kind of suicidal, please call for help. Please call. Always call. Get help. And I will tell a funny story connected to this one. When I hit 60, it changed. My I believe it's hormonal. Again, not a doctor. Just read a lot, and it's my personal opinion, that's all. I believe that in your 60s, actual bipolar 1 people are in danger again. Because what I found out when I started actually speaking to people and letting them know I was bipolar, which I'd hidden all the rest of my life because I had to work. I had to be able to work. Was that a lot of people in their 60s die of a heart attack, a stroke, or they commit suicide. And I think it's because your hormones have shifted, because all of a sudden in my 60s, it wasn't battle fatigue anymore. It was like somebody just pushed in my brain and went, it's a good day for you to die. Die now, is what started happening. I was terrified, because I dealt with the other kind, and I knew when to call for help, But this thing where it would just happen like that, oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, I looked at the sun through the glasses when we had the solar eclipse, and it happened then.
Oh.
it's, for me, there's something about light. I don't know about all bipolar people, because I'm not all bipolar people, you know, but there is something about light, and it isn't the lack of light,
It's
it's
too
the
much
light.
That's
'Cause-
new to me.
Because every full moon, all my life, I've had issues, you know, and it isn't the full moon itself. It's the half moon up to the night before the full moon that I don't sleep, that I've had trouble sleeping. And then when we get into the waning moon, it gets easier and easier until you hit the dark of the moon.
Wow.
And see, I know that because I kept that wee moon Wee moon, I love you. You folks, you women out there in Oregon that started the wee moon calendar, I love you guys. Anyway, I kept this calendar with the moon phases on it for 4 years. And I was finally able to see exactly what was going on.
That is so important.
Yes.
I think all people,
Yes.
men included,
Everybody
need to
should
start keeping a moon
an
calendar.
awareness calendar.
You will see the patterns, and you will see
Yes,
that
you will.
linear time is not all that there is.
No, and you will see if you've gotten triggered by people. If you will
Sure.
just write some things down. What I did is I'd put a straight line for a day where I thought I was pretty even. For me, that was always hypomania, because I never got down to normal back then. And then if I was agitated, I'd do like kind of the water sign, you know, the up and down thing. And then if I was hiring a kite, I'd have an arrow up. If I was suicidal, arrow down. And that's how I did it, because it was simple enough to keep on any calendar.
Yeah.
And then what I started doing eventually is I started writing what I was eating, you know, how much I was sleeping, and if I got upset by anything. And what's really funny to me is in the past, I really didn't understand what kinds of things were upsetting me because I was manic all the time. I was in full-on panic mode all the time. And I think what happens is this is progressive, and so I'm not gonna call it an illness, I'm gonna call it dis-ease,
Yeah.
you know?
I think that's the appropriate way to view that word.
Dis-ease.
Period.
Dis-ease.
It is the opposite
Okay.
of ease.
Yes, yeah.
It's just something in our brains that is making life hard.
And
It's not
if you get
a
the right
condition.
kind of help, when you start having
Permanent
issues with anxiety, okay? Because my son, okay, back in the day, they used to say that if you were bipolar 1 and you had a child, that child had I think it was a 75% chance of being bipolar 2. Now, my son that I had out of my body started having anxiety issues as he became a young adult, which is when they think people become bipolar, but that really isn't it. He was like me as a kid. He heard voices at night. He saw books flying out of bookshelves at night. I mean, this kid was just like me, you know. And then, unfortunately, we had a family tragedy, and his father had brain damage, and it expressed itself in a lot of anger. And so then he had, you know, that kind of thing on top of it, on top of that. Until 10, he really had a pretty good childhood, I'd say, you know. And still, even after that, it wasn't like horrid, but, you know, stuff would come out. And when you're a parent, and he helped me understand this, when you're a parent and you say something to a child, it goes straight into their gut. They have no defense against you. No defense. And it actually helped me understand my own mess better when he expressed that to me, you know, because I've realized that when I was raped, when I was 12, I've blamed myself all my life. I didn't even remember it, but I just kept pulling in all kinds of devastation on myself because I believed I had no right to be here, that I was a terrible person because I made this happen, you know, and that's part of what we need to leave behind is the blame and shame game.
Yes.
We really
For
do.
ourselves and others.
And others.
Like,
Yes.
I like to say, even if you are guilty of something, like make your peace with what
Yeah.
you did and
Yeah.
transform.
Yes.
It's time, like the
Yes.
pressure is on you to transform
Yes.
and change. And we're
Yes.
all afraid of change because we're afraid to change it up on other people, even if it's a positive change. I've realized how scared I was the whole past 3 years, like of just stepping out into the world in a new way. And
I got
don't
scared
even-
yesterday.
It doesn't make it. Yeah,
We were getting
yeah.
ready to do the podcast today. I wasn't scared about doing the podcast. I'm scared of how our lives are going to change. because that's our intent.
I
And I realized, like, my intent is something that's terrifying to
don't
me.
let it get so big. Yeah. That's why I'm trying to just say, like,
Yeah.
keep it like we know we're at a humble beginning.
We just
we
just
don't know
do this
where
part.
it's gonna go.
Yeah.
The
Yes.
dream is big. The
Yeah.
dream is huge. But you know
Yeah.
what? Shoot for the moon and you'll land among the stars.
Yeah.
So I'm just keeping it on the moon, like our Sagittarius.
Mhm.
That's you.
Yeah.
Just keep aiming for the moon. Wherever we land is great.
Yeah.
And we're making such incredible progress already. I love this about Penny. You do this even when we're just talking at your house. She takes notes constantly. She's just always writing little notes.
Yeah.
So what you got going there?
Well, I'm kind of, of make yourself happy and make others happy. And it's so simple. You just smile, and it makes somebody smile back
Yeah,
at you,
it's true.
and they feel better, and you feel better. If we just started that,
Yeah.
it might make days better.
Of
It
course
might
it
make,
does.
and somebody sees you smile, and
Yeah.
and you're looking at them, they
Or-
smile back.
Fake it till you make it. If you don't
Yeah.
have a smile in your soul, like make stupid smiles in the mirror until
Right.
something feels right.
Just
Because I've been in those like the cranky spaces. Like Oscar the Grouch is kind of like my secret.
I love that.
What's the word? Person.
Avatar?
Not no, I can't think of it.
Shadow?
Alter
ego.
Alter ego.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, alter ego.
When I was a kid, we went to see Sesame Street Live, and I stood up. I was enraged that I couldn't see Oscar. He was in his trash
so
can.
funny. Oh my God, I love it. You haven't told us that before.
Yeah,
How
it's
old
not
were
something
you?
that comes up. I was a toddler. I don't know how old for sure. It's one of those stories that the family tells over and
Of
over
course
again.
they do.
Yes.
But I
Yeah.
didn't hear it until kind of later, and that was already after I'd established, like, I feel something about that, because I also share a birthday with Oscar Wilde, so I have a whole synchronistic thing.
With Oscars.
This was when I was discovering mania and
Oh,
synchronicity. Having all these
the mind
spiritual
starts making all these
awakenings.
connections. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. But so I know exactly what it's like to be too grouchy to smile and to resent being told to smile. Like,
Yes.
But I'm also wounded by it when I'm smiling. I'm like, why would you tell me not to smile? Like, I don't know. There's oh, yeah. But, if you can, smile at somebody.
yes. And once
Simple.
you do it, it gets easier.
Well, and I was talking to Danny, my husband, about that yesterday, because he's not the kind of person who can be at home and be happy. He has to be around other people, and so he's working at our favorite meat market. He's working with this guy that owns the meat market now. Anyway, he was complaining yesterday about the two younger people in the room. And I said, it's interesting to me that it's only the younger people you're having an issue with. And I said, I know how you are. And I said, when you're focusing, you don't smile. I said, I come in there and you never smile. I never see you smile. And I said, I don't know if I should be saying people's names or not. I started thinking about that after
Probably
the
not.
last one.
I don't
This
know.
other guy that works in there smiles. He always smiles.
Yes.
And so he's my favorite person to talk to when I go in as a customer.
Ah,
And so I told my husband, I said, you might try just smiling at these two. Because
Might change
maybe
a lot.
what it is you're their grandfather's age, and especially if they've got grandpas who are grumpy, that they've had to watch themselves around, you may be triggering them just by not smiling when you're focusing on stuff.
I have that too. When I'm focusing, I tend to look really serious, and I do have kind of a resting bitch face. And people have told me,
I haven't heard that one.
and it's
Resting
really,
bitch face.
Yep. It's a thing.
I'm kind of slow. I was like, yeah, okay, I get that. I didn't get the humor part. I was like, yeah, resting bitch face. I get it.
It's just a normal thing now, but it's because it's when I'm deep in thought or when I'm
Let me
focusing.
write that down.
And I
Yeah,
get
she's writing it down. Resting bitch face.
I get the furrowed brow and like I've had to
See,
do
I've got
all
this
of-
line between my eyes, so
Yeah.
I've done it all my life, And sometimes I purse my lips,
Me too. Yeah.
My mother does that.
Yeah.
My son and I noticed it when he was in high school. Just a couple of pictures he took when I was like focusing, and reading. I'd have that look on my face, and we'd both go that I look like my mother, Yeah, it was pretty funny.
That's a lot of what, okay, the narcissism thing, like the feedback of the mirror does a lot for us.
Yes.
You can see
Oh
all
my
those little
gosh,
things
yes.
like that,
Yes.
that, you know, if I did this, people might react to me a little better. Even if it's faultless, like it's just, you know, like biofeedback.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Or-
well, I've noticed lately, you know, when you're out and about or looking at movies or whatever, it makes a difference. I mean, you can sit and look at the TV or a movie you're watching, and somebody's smiling in it, and it makes you smile. You're into the movie,
Yeah.
you know. And we just don't do that enough, you know.
We are mirroring
And,
beings.
and when we're hurried and rushed at home, and the kids are hungry, and you don't have time to fix dinner, and you know, you have that resting bitch face.
I can see we're going to be using that one.
Yes,
resting
we are.
bitch
It's
face.
written on the
I'll write it
curtain.
down on my book too. Resting bitch face. I just love that.
Love
That's
that.
hilarious. Resting bitch face.
But you know, we've all been there.
Yeah. Or more intentional bitch face.
Yeah.
But there's also, when it comes to I guess we're talking about kind of a reactionary version of like what we just naturally do as beings when we're
Yes.
around a smiley person versus a grumpy looking
Exactly.
person. Mindfulness might step in and be like, oh, maybe this person's grumpy because of something that happened, or maybe they're not grumpy at all. Maybe they have resting bitch face.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
mindfulness will ask all those questions.
Yes.
Or
whereas
awareness. That's
mental
another word Penny
awareness.
came up with was awareness.
Awareness.
And I wanted to mention that
Yes.
more people maybe might relate to the word awareness.
Awareness.
We
That's
just want
very
to
good
just be
because-
aware as we go through our days.
Yes.
You know, because well, the other day when we had lunch down the street, and I thanked the women who were at the counter. I said, I did what you're doing for a brief portion of my life, and I deeply hated it. So thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And of course I was leaving a tip too, that I just said, you know, because I messed it. It was an app, and you could do all this stuff, and I hadn't done it before. So my tip didn't make it to the app, and so I was digging around my purse, and they're going, no, it's okay. And I go, no, it's not okay. If you've done this and you
Yeah.
hated it, you
Show
tip well,
gratitude,
because you
not just in
appreciate people
words.
who can do this and be okay with it.
I mean, I waited tables for 10 years, and for that time, I
God.
loved it. For most of it, towards the end, not so much. It's something that a certain type of person can do, and I stopped being that type of person.
And I never was.
And now
Yeah.
I'm like, I get why people thank people like this.
I
I
did,
did
yeah.
when I was younger. I totally was like, this is great for me. I love the energy I'm in when I'm doing it. I always felt like a little butterfly, like flitting around the room.
I hated it.
And
I hated it from the word
It
go.
helped my. It helped me with my mania. It also gave me structure for it,
Well,
like
that's
something
interesting.
to put. And I'm just now really reflecting and learning all this stuff,
Interesting,
like
yes.
with a new lens.
Yeah.
But yeah, yes, thank you to all people who serve people constantly, because
Yes.
it is taxing.
Yes.
It is taxing.
And I mean, I'm still doing it in a way with Uber.
Yeah.
It's more
Yes.
therapy kind of, but it's also therapy for me because driving relaxes me.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, yeah. So mindful is awareness. Mental can be lack of awareness. Like you're in
I
the
think
cage.
that's what we're talking about.
You're stuck
Yeah.
You're
in
in
the
a
cage.
state.
You can't see.
A
Yeah.
state of something.
And
Anger
you know,
Some
or
and this is,
hurt or
you know,
sadness.
open
or,
your Bible up. Just
Anything
put
to
your
get you
hand
out.
down and read anything. I've read the Bible all my life, and I still do. I know what people's issues are with the Bible, who don't like the Bible, but the way I was taught to read it was with discernment. That
Yeah.
word was used when I was taught to read the
Importance.
Bible by the people who were helping me learn about spirituality and faith. And I was told that we did not believe, I was German Lutheran, that we did not believe that our faith in God would save us from anything. that this life is hard, and that what your faith could do for you is act as a rudder to help you get through life.
Well,
And
I
that's
think that's the
mindfulness.
lesson of death. Like, we are creatures, we are temporary.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the fact that we're aware of death is that lesson, all like right there.
Yeah.
It's all contained.
Mm-hmm.
Mystery, dark matter. And that kind of, I mean, God is within that mystery.
Yeah.
We're not really supposed to understand it fully, as much as we can, but reading the Bible and using discernment or any wisdom
Any book of
compendium.
wisdom. I have a book
Will-
that has the 99 names for Allah, and I just
Oh,
love
yeah,
to
yeah.
read those
Mhm.
because the Christian religion doesn't overtly address that, but the 99 names of Allah do. Destroyer, creator, Ganesha in the Hindu way of believing is a destroyer and a creator.
Yep.
So I like those kinds of things too, that acknowledges that, because the way I was taught to read the Bible was with deep acknowledgement of how complex and difficult this life is, and that it would not save you from any of that. It's a navigation tool.
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, it's a navigation tool. And I guess maybe that's what mindfulness is. We circle back around and finish up here.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Navigation tools,
Mhm.
meditation, prayer, walking in the woods, sitting in the grass while your kids are playing, getting out in the morning sun and looking at the sky. Because this is something a lot of people don't know. If you're having trouble sleeping, you have got to be outside early in the day, every day, because your brain, and then again about 5:30 in the afternoon or so, because that's how your brain learns that it has to release melatonin at night. And what I've read is that people like myself who had a lot of trauma in childhood, they wake up at 9 o'clock at night, which is the way it's always been for me. If I'm not doing something toward, and I'm not halfway there by 9 o'clock, I'm going to be awake till all hours of the night. And so now, I'm trying to crash before 9 o'clock at night so that doesn't happen. But that is real typical. Andrew Huberman is a Stanford neuroscientist and ophthalmologist. Neuroscientist and ophthalmologist, yeah. And he's on YouTube, and I can recommend him to those of you and me, because part of me is like that, who need logic and science.
Yeah.
He's very logic and science oriented, but he's an open-minded logic and science person. And that's what I like about him. And I drink some of the drinks he suggested. I take cold showers at night now because he said that will help you go to sleep. And I found out it did help me sleep.
Yeah.
After, it's kind of harsh in the beginning, and he talks about that. It's like, yikes!
I tried it.
Yeah,
Not for me.
It's a little ugly. I've always liked really hot steaming showers.
Yes.
So my husband laughed when I said I was going to do this. Dan
yeah.
was cracking up. He's going, "Oh yeah, that's going to work," because I like mine so hot he can't stand to be in them. But I've learned to do the cold now, and it did help this summer. It helped me for a couple of months not going to solid gold mania.
Yeah.
It did help.
Good.
In the end, I was totally manic. There was nothing I could do about it in the end. But it made
But it
2
softened
months
the blow.
easier. It did.
It's a small key that can unlock a heavy door.
Yes.
It's always about a little trick. And
Yes.
You just have to experiment to find it when
Yes.
it comes to these navigation tools.
Yes.
Don't be afraid to try anything.
Yes.
I keep telling people, just put on a meditation on YouTube. Don't even try to
Anything.
meditate. Just
Yeah.
put it on in the background.
Just put it on in the background.
And
Absolutely.
And listen.
Yeah. Just play with a deck of cards, a normal deck of cards. That's how I got started with all of the tarot. I just felt like I needed to hold cards and I needed to play with them.
Uh-huh.
And I was getting messages from just a regular playing deck
Oh yeah.
right away. And then I was hooked.
And I'm the same way about the cards and books. I mean, I love to Google for information, but I've had to stop that because of the mania, because it definitely feeds into that, because you find things so quickly.
Oh,
You know,
yes.
and I could just be
Yeah,
on
it's
endlessly. So
I'm still
especially when I'm
wrestling with
manic,
that.
I stay away from the computer, I stay away from the phone, everything. I shut them off when I'm in mania. So I haven't been on lately.
You have more discipline than I.
That's good.
Yeah,
So you've recognized that and
Yeah.
you've stopped it.
it's been the last few years. though.
Right,
It's
but
been since
still.
I decided to sit down 5 minutes a day and see if I was tired.
What I'm gonna start
Well,
doing
those two
is
things.
when I'm going on my deep dives on the internet, if I start to get that stressed feeling like I can't even keep track of the tabs, I'm gonna get up and do the 5 minutes of yoga. That helped a lot yesterday.
Good. You didn't mention that when you
That's
said
good.
you did
That's-
5 minutes of yoga.
Yeah,
That's
it was
why?
natural. I was like,
Good girl.
well, I don't really want to do this right now, but I'm going to.
Yes.
Good.
And I did it, and it was awesome. I
Well-
mean, I did a little extra on my
Uh-huh.
own because I
Yes.
had done. When I was younger, I overdid the Pilates, and I hurt my hip flexor, and it's a pain that never really is totally gone. So I've just
Great.
kind of been
Shoot.
soured on all that because
Because
I
you did too much.
fucked something up too early.
Yeah.
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 But
Yeah,
you
be
can
careful
you
of
can
that.
use yoga to
Yeah.
work that out again over time.
Yeah.
I'm
Hopefully.
going to be doing some stuff that's going to be very hard for me that Bob, my masseuse, suggested, and it's going to be.
Well, we're
hard.
getting spaces cleared out over here.
Yeah.
We're gonna be.
We're gonna have the mirrors.
We're
up,
on the
and
journey
we'll
with
start,
you.
We'll start
We're
showing
gonna
that too. We're
in
gonna
a
start
lot of these
showing
ways
some
too.
yoga poses.
Yeah.
We're
I
just-
don't feel like I have a yoga body. I'm like.
Well, I don't.
always-
I
feel
don't.
like
I'm not the
awkward
person. I'm never the person in the yoga class that everybody goes, "Oh yeah, I wish I could do that." I'm not that person. You know, I've been that person for other things, but never
Never
in
that
yoga. You know, and I believe it's probably because of all the physical abuse. You know, that my body just is like this most of the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Tense.
You know, really tense, because that's what I've noticed. Because I used to have some kind of thing that was coming up. Every full moon, it would come up, and it would feel like there was a stick coming up from on my backside. And he actually, Bob showed me. He has a skeleton in his room, and he showed me where that was. And he said that when I was raped, that leg was probably pressed way down.
Oh,
You know,
dear.
and so things went out of alignment, and so every full moon, that's what was happening.
Wow.
The pain
The
was
body remembered.
horrendous. Yeah, and you know, you can get over stuff like that because I have. Through all of the toning, it stopped after I started toning all the time.
Wow.
Isn't that weird?
Seriously,
And-
vibration.
Vibrations. Who
Sound.
knows? And it might not be the same for somebody else. It might be an hour of meditation. That's helped me with stuff. You don't know, and that's what I do want to mention this because Danny, my husband, helped me so much because he has more of a science background than I do. I'm fascinated by it, but my major stuff is in the arts, and he's the other way. His major stuff was in math and science, but he loves the arts. So we've always just really met in the middle. We're both fascinated by all of this stuff, and that's our sons grew up talking about, string theory, sociology, psychology, spirituality, Christianity, and all of the arts at the dinner table every night.
That's so important.
Yes,
and we're
yes.
all raised by television. And
Yes.
when you have to seek out your own interests, like I was a blank slate.
Yes.
By the time I realized how interested I was in my own mind and
Uh-huh.
in my intellectual, just all of that, it wasn't until college,
Wow.
and I don't feel like cheated or it's just it's not a potential that's not being realized in so many
Yeah,
yes.
households.
And and see, my husband's more from your kind of background. Nobody ever thought about art at his house.
Yeah.
Nobody,
Because of the grind, because of
Yes,
the
'cause
struggle to survive.
the survival.
Yes.
Yeah.
His mother had twins, and was never around anybody who could help her because they were moving every year. She was completely OCD, stressed out. She had been sexually abused. His father did something to him. Her grandfather did it to her. I mean, this stuff just goes on and on and on. And Carolyn Miss this morning said, don't tell me about your damage. I don't want to hear it. And I think I could hear it in her voice. She's an East Coaster. I don't know where she is from on the East Coast, but I could hear the accent. And I've got a friend who's a really good friend of mine who's from the East Coast, and she always kind of had that same thing,
Yeah.
you know. I don't go along with that. All you out there, you come to our channel if you want to whine. It's okay.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
I
Safe
believe
place to-
secrets kill.
Yes.
I
Yes.
have
That's
every
the
cousin
whole
in my
thing.
family who was like me died way younger than I died. Down to a generation down from me too, a couple of generations down even. Because what families do is the person who's gotten the brunt of the stuff, you know,
Black sheep.
they cast them out so that they don't disparage the family in any way, or they hide everything they're doing. I've seen that happen in other families, they hide it. They hide everything that's going on.
Yeah.
Those are not, I don't believe those are the right things to do. I think we need to just say out loud, you know,
Yeah.
this is what's happened, and we work on ourselves and forgiveness.
Yes.
What I found out, because I found out that my mother knew, not, her comment was, I knew part of it, not all of it. Having been a mother myself, when she said I knew part of it,
Part
I
of
wanted
it,
to
I've-
murder her. And that lasted about a year. I'd be sitting in my house and all of a sudden this would just come out of my mouth. Fucking bitch! I had to work at this forgiveness thing. But you know, I knew all the players. I grew up around her parents, his parents, the great grandmothers from her side, so I knew a lot of the history actually of these people in some ways, because I was also that kid everybody told their secrets to. And in the end, I believe if you really know another person's story, you can't blame them. That's what Luther. I'm Lutheran, and that's what Luther focused on in the Bible. He caught that word grace, and that's what he pulled away from the Catholic Church. Is you don't have to buy your way into heaven. You don't have to get saved over and over to get into heaven. You're in heaven. You're in heaven because you're with God.
And it's also
to me,
not.
see, I still deeply believe those kinds of things. But what I realized is that part of Germany, on the south side of the Alps, they all believe like that. That's where all the radical thinkers have come from. In Germany too, is right down in there. Those people were the last to be conquered by the Romans. And I think that their belief system tended to stay very earth and I would say even Eastern centric, you know, for a long, long time.
Kind of lost me there. I'm so bad at the.
I know the history.
and
I'm
peoples.
talking history here,
But,
yeah. So if
I
you're
wanted to say
curious,
something.
you know,
Oh.
you can read about
Yeah.
ancient Germany. You know,
When it comes to like what will save you, it's also not just
Mm-hmm.
confessing and you're done with it, because that's another way that like East Coast and other
Mm-hmm.
families do it, and like the masculine, they wait until the anger ramps up and have a big blowout, and then everyone forgets about it. I recently had a thing with my brother where that happened. We had kind of a blowout, and then it was like just fine. We kind of did a little text like forgiveness thing, but it kind of irks me when this happens because it doesn't
Yeah.
really get resolved.
No.
Like we don't actually have that deep talk and come to terms with what was said during
and what was felt.
Yes.
It isn't even so much, to me, what was said is often not the point. What was felt was the
What
real
was felt.
point.
Yes, yes,
Because what was
because
said
what
may have been
said-
inaccurate.
Yeah.
What's
Because
really
we're
important
totally
is what were
clumsy.
both people feeling.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is with forest philosophy, is that they're just expressing how they're feeling in the moment.
Yeah.
An animal is, you know, and they don't have fallout because it is just about the moment. We have fallout because we had words about the moment, and the words often
and
confuse
history
it.
and the
Yeah,
whole story.
yeah, you know.
Anyway, mindfulness would just be being aware that every situation and every human is very complex.
Yes.
There's no need to make it about enemies or winners and losers, because often when such intense emotional ties are there, you want to be the winner, you want to be the victor, but nobody wins that way.
And again, that's a survival thing.
It's the zero sum
Yeah, it
game
is, yeah.
where one party has to win. at the expense of the other party. And that's what we're all trying to end here. That's what the next step in consciousness in evolution is end the zero-sum game.
I think that's why there's so much anger right now, because there
Oh
are
my
so many
goodness.
people who believe in the zero-sum game, and they're feeling pretty panicky,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes.
Well, they're the
and
ones
angry.
going through the tower.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are
Yeah.
going, like, it's gonna happen. The quicker you can surrender, the better. Because love is here. The healers are here.
Well, and I really wonder,
Can't be too soon.
when I had my vision, the big vision 3 years ago, I saw that a new kind of warrior would be warriors for the earth, for the planet. That they would go out and build wells and, build things to help everybody have water. Water's gonna be a big thing, folks.
Yeah, it is.
That
It
they would,
already
that
is
the
in
new kinds of
some places.
soldiers wouldn't be trying to conquer another country, that everybody's soldiers would be trying to do good for all, wherever they are.
The warriors of the rainbow.
Yeah.
The Native American prophecy. That's been big in my brain. I lived out on 40 acres where my mom would go out and find arrowheads, and I've always picked up on the collective energies. And I was thinking a lot in terms of Native Americans, but I didn't realize that I did this because when I lived in a majority black neighborhood in Columbus, Ohio, I was picking up on all the old
Right.
racial tension, and
Sure.
I think that's why I really exploded. Also, was I was picking up on all the
Yes.
ancient history
Yes.
there in my
Yes.
neighborhood,
Yes.
in addition to the politics of the time,
Yes.
which
Was not
And-
good.
But this, I latched onto this phrase back every Sunday on the local radio there in Claremore. They would play Native American chants. It was Native Air was the name of the show.
Oh, cool.
And a phrase I heard was, "May you be surrounded by the colors of the rainbow to make you
Oh.
unbreakable." And I just latched
Wow,
onto
I
that,
love
and
that.
I've envisioned that ever since.
I love that.
I'm just
God,
like,
we have
gotta
so
get
much in common. It's so weird. I mean, because
I'm discovering things all the time.
yeah, and I grew up partially in Anadarko, Oklahoma, which is the headquarters for one of the headquarters for the Lenape tribe. And is it the Comanches? I'm not sure. I apologize if any of you are seeing this, and you can sure write it down. But we lived below what was then a tourist trap back then, and they had stuff from Japan, Native American dolls from Japan when I was a kid, right? Wow.
That's great.
But I went to sleep to the drums every night. They did powwows every night, and I went to sleep to that sound, and I carried that with me all my
Yeah.
life. And when I moved back to Oklahoma 20 years ago, I went out to take a walk. It was like the first week I lived here, and I heard some guys drumming in my neighborhood.
It was
And
like
I
a
went-
siren call, like
I went.
Pied Piper.
I stood and I put my arms out and I said, "This is why I came back.
Yes.
This is why I came back. Love that sound, love thunder, love crickets, love cicadas. All the noises of Oklahoma that I missed for 25 years when I was on the
Yes.
far west coast.
Lightning,
Yes.
thunderstorms,
Yeah, all that
depths,
stuff.
the seasons.
Allison, would you repeat that
She's
quote?
no.
May the
Yeah.
colors, that one,
May the colors.
of the rainbow surround you, make you unbreakable.
I love that.
Yes. That's
You know,
beautiful.
I've always been
That's
so
beautiful.
emotional all my life.
Yeah.
I felt a
too.
little tearing up there with it.
Oh,
Like I
yeah.
haven't been able to do stuff like this because I will tear up. If there's a moment of too intense connection, I just feel
Well, I cry all the time.
yeah. And
Yeah.
most of my life I have not been able to control that. When I say like I probably was not ready to meet you a year ago, I mean it because I was still weepy, just constantly weepy.
Oh, I still go through that.
My moon is in Cancer.
I still go through that.
Yeah.
Where just everything makes me cry. I'll get up one day and like for 3 days I'm crying constantly.
Yeah.
Everything makes me cry. I stay away from the news when it's like that.
I do entirely
I
now.
do now.
I get my news through
Yeah.
astrologers now.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
My husband tells me he watches the comedians, and then he tells
Comedians
me,
and
Oh my
astrologers.
gosh,
Yes,
I
me
can
too.
do that. I can do the comedians. And the fact is, we don't all need to be putting energy into those negative things
Yeah.
that are on the news,
It feeds it.
because it feeds it. Especially if you believe that thoughts become reality, we all need to step back away from that so-called reality. You know, I saw
Create-
something on the Atlantic. I love the Atlantic because I love the writers. And I saw a thing in there this morning that was talking about Putin and his threats to do a nuclear, some kind of nuclear thing. And then Carolyn Miss, I heard Carolyn Miss say, well, and I used to talk like this, that, you know, it's not normal to have something that was invented and not use it. Humans always use it. You know, and I was always that way too. But I don't know. I'm willing to think that we won't. I'm willing to think we won't. That if enough people think like that, it won't happen.
Well, think about it this way. If someone comes and is like, here, I've got this bomb, I'm gonna use it, and you just play into it like it is the threat that they're threatening, then of course that dynamic is going to happen. But if you ignore it, it's just like the bully. Like, I was great at this as a kid. I was bullied, but I literally did not register what was happening at the time. No reaction means they just go away. It's to get a response, to get a reaction, even if it's economic or
Yes,
you know, whatever
right,
the
whatever it
political
is.
motivations are. If you play into those, like, they're not. You have to sign on to being a victim to become a victim. Like, it's a very profound instance of understanding when you get that, when you really, and it's hard to grasp as well. But it's deep and it's very profound, and it creates the reality that we live in. I've been trying to find like the most gentle terms, but to describe this phenomenon, because I see people that want to prevent certain things from happening, causing them to happen.
They put
by
energy
feeding
into it. Yeah, it's because when you
all the time.
work on something, you're putting energy into that.
Yeah.
It is a very
I still have
it's
not
not a
found the
simple way of
terms.
thinking. Not, you know, to not do that. And that's something we've been working on in this house for a couple of years now, you know, is not to put the juju into what you don't want, put it in what you do want.
Yep.
And I know I've been crossing over heavily in that just lately. You know, I've been seeing things differently than I traditionally have, and thinking about it differently. And I really, well, it's a little scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little scary.
It
I'll be
is,
honest. I think that's why I
because-
was scared yesterday.
Because it's also coming to terms with the power that you have. And I've dealt with this by envisioning the solar plexus. The solar plexus is our center of power. It's the yellow chakra. Like, sometimes I just have to have that in mind, because I have thought of power as a negative most of my life. I really had to learn the positive sense of power, personal power, and ambition and presence in the world.
Yeah.
So yeah, just
And soft women and soft men have to learn those things.
really, really.
And that's something that we're going to be addressing. You know, this is called Southern Sisters Sanctuary. But the first time Dan comes in, he's going to be wearing his Irish kilt.
Yeah, we
So,
were thinking about, we were kicking around
men
the
in
idea,
skirts.
well, or a little flower in your
we're gonna
hair,
have
like
something
when
for
men
the
come
guys,
on the show.
because we're not just about women. We're about our fellow sisters too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, and recognizing that masculine and feminine are present within every individual.
They're just words.
And I
Yeah.
mean, I love to preserve the distinctions,
or
like the
yin
fundamental distinctions.
That's something I want to start talking about, is yin yang, because a couple of years ago I had a big problem with this masculine feminine stuff. I think if you're the age we are, it's a lot more volatile than maybe it is for somebody your age.
Yeah.
Because we were still raised completely in the old system where a woman's only value was her value to a man. And
Which you've been talking about some things that shocked
And-
me.
and
that,
it's
like,
still-
when
It's
you
not
went to
that
register
long
to
ago.
marry.
It's
Yeah.
still out
Yes,
there.
yes it is. I turn on the TV every once in a while at somebody else's house where they have real television, not the kind I have where I pick what I want. And I'm like, oh my God, this is still going on. Because I forget, because I'm not that person.
Well, there are
Yeah.
there are echoes of it that they do translate in dynamics in our lives, and especially in our closest ties, in the romantic relationship, like, because that is a sexual relationship, even if even if you're two asexual people, if you're in a partnership, it's because of that energy dynamic.
Yeah, some kind of energy
the poles.
exchange.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't think we can afford to dispense with those terms, but this is all a whole other show also.
Yeah, we're going to be
Next
talking
one,
a lot.
we have a lot of polarities to explore.
Yes, we
Our
do.
next one is going to be vanity versus individuation. Narcissism would be the broad umbrella there. Okay, I think we tried to do final thoughts on mindful versus mental, and we got on a whole other show.
Yes,
but
we did, but
Well, that's what we always do, so
But
get used to it.
I'm good. I think I said everything
look
that
into
I wanted
mindfulness.
to say. Mental, I wrote down as self-conscious. Mindful is soul-conscious.
I like that.
Mental prison, mindful prism.
That's nice too.
Mental, this is an interesting bifurcation as well. Mental sees cause and effect. Mindful, you decide the effect and then the causes line up. Like, so that is solar plexus, like what I decide to make reality. The way
Yes.
will open up behind me. If I have the end in mind, which is peace, harmony, the earth in balance, then the ways to get there will just fall right behind me.
And for those of you who love the Bible, what just came to me is be still and know I am.
Yes.
Amen.
I think that's a good place to stop. Amen.
I think we need to do our
Yeah.
3 of Cups.
3 cups. Yep.
Woo!
Sending out love.